Good evening, folks. This is Zechariah Jackson, president of Bassett News. You know, last Tuesday was a great day, a great night. President Joe Biden delivered his State of the Union address. And, you know, it was a good address because it dealt with a lot of things, especially for the young people that next year will be eligible of age to vote. And I ask you to take a good look at, a good listen to the Joe Biden State of the Union Address 2023 because it really dealt with your future. You know, I stand here today to say a word, but not just a word, church. An action in which we all need to understand that President Joe Biden is not just the president of this day, but he is the hope for tomorrow. So let's come together and start our march toward November 2024 and vote Joe Biden and Kamala Harris back in office. God bless you. God bless you. I'm going to deliver parts of the State of the Union address and just to highlight some things, you know, that is so important, especially for our young people as they come of age today to vote. You know, it's because really what he was talking about with the infrastructure project and things, he was talking about your future more than mine. I'll be 60 years old in less than 3 or 4 months from now. He's talking about the young people, and you got to give them cheerio on that. So many people that seek office is not even thinking about the young as if though you don't have a life. Here it is. An address before a joint session of Congress on the State of the Union. It's lengthy, so be patient with me. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Speaker, Madam President, and that's the future also, Madam President, hear that, young folk. Our First Lady and Second Gentleman, hear that, young men, hear that, because again, some of you in a few years may be second gentlemen. Good to see you guys here. Members of Congress. And by the way, Chief Justice, I may need a court order, Joe Biden said. She gets to go to the game tomorrow, meaning the president, the vice president. Next week I have to stay home, and we got to work something out here. Members of the cabinet, leaders of our military, Chief Justice, Associate Judge, Justice, and retired Justice of the Supreme Court, and to you, fellow Americans. You know, I start tonight by congratulating the 118th Congress and the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Speaker, I don't want to ruin your reputation, the President said, but I look forward to working with you. And I want to congratulate the new leader of the Democrats, the first Black American minority leader in history, Hakeem Jeffries. He won despite the fact I campaigned for him. Congratulations to the longest serving leader in the history of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell. Where are you? And congratulations to Chuck Schumer, another term as Senate minority leader. You know, I think you only this time you have a slightly bigger majority. Mr. Leader, and you're the majority leader. About that much bigger. Well, a little laughter come along with it. I tell you what, I want to give Speaker special recognition to someone who I think is going to be considered the greatest speaker in the history of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. Fact, folks, the story of America is a story of progress and resilience, of always moving forward or never, ever giving up. It's a story unique among all nations. We're the only country that has emerged from every crisis we ever entered stronger than we got into it. Look, folks, that's what we're doing again. 2 years ago, the economy was reeling. I stand here tonight after we created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs. More jobs created in 2 years than any president has created in 4 years. Before, because of you all, because of the American people, 2 years ago and 2 years ago, COVID had shut down our business. Our business was closed, our schools was robbed of so much, and today, COVID is no longer control our lives. And 2 years ago, our democracy faced its greatest threat since the Civil War. And today, though abuse, our democracy remains unbowed and unbroken. As we gather here tonight, we're writing the new chapter in the great American story, a story of progress and resilience. When world leaders ask me to define America, and they do, believe it or not, I say I can define it in one word. And I mean this: possibilities. We don't think anything is beyond our capacity. Everything is a possibility. You know, we're often told that Democrats and Republicans can't work together. But over the past 2 years, we proved the cynics and naysayers wrong. Yes, we disagree plenty. And yes, there were times when Democrats went alone. But time and again, Democrats and Republicans came together to defend a stronger and safer Europe. You came together past once in a generation, infrastructure law, building bridges, connecting our nation and our people. We came together to pass one of the most significant law ever helping victims exposed to toxic burns. And in fact, it's important. And in fact, I signed over 300 bipartisan pieces of legislation since becoming president. From reorganizing the Violence Against Women Act to the Electoral Count Reform Act, the Respect for Marriage Act that protects the right to marry the person you love. And to my Republican friends, if we could work together in the last Congress, there's no reason we can't work together and find consensus on important things in the Congress as well. I think, folks, you all are just as informed as I am. But I think the people sent us a clear message: fighting in the sake of fighting, power for the sake of power, conflict for the sake of conflict get us nowhere. Thanks. That's always been my vision of our country. And I know it's many of yours, to restore the soul of this nation, to rebuild the backbone of America's middle class, and to unite the country. We've been sent here to finish the job, in my view, for decades. The middle class has been hollowed out in more than not in one administration, but for a long time. Too many good-paying manufacturing jobs moved overseas. Factories closed down. Once thriving cities and towns that many of you represent became shadows of what they used to be. And along the way, Something else we lost: pride, our sense of self-worth. I ran for president to fundamentally change things, to make sure the economy works for everyone, so we can all feel the pride in what we do to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. I know a lot of you, church, a lot of you always kid me for always quoting my dad. But my dad used to say, Joey, a job is not about a lot more. A job is about a lot more than a paycheck. He really would say this. It's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, folks, so let's look at the results. We're not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination, but unemployment rate is at 3.4%, a 50-year low, and near record. Near record unemployment for Black and Hispanic workers. We're already created, with ill help, 800,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs, the fastest growth in 40 years. And where is it written that America can't lead the world in manufacturing? And I don't know where that is written. For too many decades, we imported projects and exported jobs. Now, thanks to what you have all done, we exporting American products and creating American jobs. Folks, inflation has been a global problem because the pandemic dry up, disrupt our supply chain, and Putin's unfair and brutal war in Ukraine, despite energy supply as well as food. So, blocking all that grain in the Ukraine. But we're better positioned than any country on earth right now. But we have more to do. But here at home, inflation is coming down. Here at home, gas prices are down $1.50 from their peak. Food inflation is coming down. Not fast enough, but coming down. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. Additionally, over the last 2 years, a record 10 million Americans applied to start new businesses. 10 million. And by the way, every time someone starts a small business, it's an act of hope. And Madam Vice President, I want to thank you for leading that effort to ensure that small business have access to capital and the historical laws we enacted that are going to just come into being. Standing here last year, I shared with you a story of American genius and possibility. Semiconductors, small computer chips the size of a fingerprint that power everything from cell phones to automobiles and so much more. These chips were invented in America. Let's get that straight. They were invented in America. And we used to make 40% of the world's chips. In the last several decades, we lost our edge. We're down to only producing 10%. We all saw what happened during the pandemic when chip factories shut down overseas. Today's automobile need 3,000 chips. Each of these automobiles, but American automobiles couldn't make enough cars because there wasn't enough chips. Car prices went up. People got laid off. So did everything from refrigerators to cell phones. We can never let that happen again. That's why we came together to pass the Bipartisan Chip and Science Act. Folks, I know I've been criticized for saying this, but I'm not changing my view. We're going to make sure the supply chain for America begins in America. The supply chain begins in America. And we're already created 800,000 new manufacturing jobs without this law. Before the law kicks in with this new law, we're going to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs across the country. And I mean all across the country, throughout not just the coast, but through the middle of the country as well. That's going to come from companies that have announced more than $300 billion in investment in American manufacturing over the next few years. Outside of Columbus, Ohio, Intel is building semi-computer factories on thousands of acres, literally a field of dreams. It is going to create 10,000 jobs. That's one investment. 7,000 construction jobs, 3,000 jobs in those factories once they're finished. They call them factories, but job paying is an average of $130,000 a year, and many do not require a college degree. Jobs because we work together. These jobs where people don't have to leave home to search for opportunity, and it's just getting started. Think about the new homes, the small businesses, the middle-sized businesses. So much more that's going to be needed to support these these 3,000 permanent jobs and the factories that are going to be built. Talk to mayors and governors, Democrats and Republicans, and they'll tell you what they mean for their community, what they want for their communities. We're seeing these fields of dreams transform the heartland. But to maintain the strongest economy in the world, we need the best infrastructure in the world. And folks, as you know, we used to be number one in the world in infrastructure. We're sunk to 13th in the world. The United States of America, 13th in the world in infrastructure, modern infrastructure. But now we're coming back, because we came together and passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the largest investment in infrastructure since President Eisenhower interstate highway system. Folks, already we are funded over 20,000 projects, including major airports from Boston to Atlanta to Portland, projects that are going to put thousands of people to work building our highways, our bridges, our railroads, our tunnels, ports, airports, clean water, high-speed internet, all across America, urban, rural, turbine. And folks, we're just getting started. We're just getting started. And I mean this sincerely. I want to thank my Republican friends who voted for the law, and my Republican friends who voted against it as well. But I still get asked to fund the project in those districts as well. But I don't worry. I promise to be a president for all Americans. We'll fund these projects, and I'll see you at the groundbreaking. Look, this law will further unite all of America. All of American projects, like the Spruce Bridge in Kentucky over the Ohio River, built 60 years ago, badly in need of repair. One of the nation's most congested freight routes, carrying $2 billion worth of freight every single day across the Ohio River. And folks, we've been talking about fixing it for decades, but we're really finally going to get it done. I went there last month with Democrats and Republicans, and from I went there last month with Democrats and Republicans from both states to deliver a commitment of $1.6 billion for this project. And while I was there, I met young women named Sarah, who's here tonight. I don't know where Sarah is. Is she up in the box? I don't know. Sarah, how are you? Well, Sarah, for 30 years, I learned. She told me she'd been a proud member of the Iron Workers Local 44, known as the Cowboys in the Sky, the folks who built Connecticut skyline. Sarah said she couldn't wait to be 10 stories above the Ohio River building that new bridge. God bless her. That's pride. And that's what we're always also building. We're building back pride. Look, folks, we're also replacing poisonous lead pipes that go into 10 million homes in America, 400,000 schools and child care centers, so every child in America can drink the water instead of having permanent damage to their brain. Look, we're making sure that every community in America has access to affordable high-speed internet. No parent should have to drive by a McDonald's parking lot to help their children do their homework online with their kids, which many thousands were doing across the country. And when we do these projects, and again, I'm criticized about this, but I make no excuse for it. We're going to buy American. We're going to buy American, folks. And it's totally consistent with international trade rules. Buy American has been the law since 1933. But for too long, past administrations, Democrats and Republicans, have fought to get around it. Not anymore. Tonight, I'm also announcing new standards to require all construction materials used in the federal infrastructure project to be made in America. Made in America, I mean it. Lumber, glass, drywall, fiber optic cables, and my watch, American roads, bridges, and American highways are going to be made with American products as well. Folks, my economic plan is about investing in places and people that have been forgotten. So many of you listening tonight, I know you feel it. So many of you felt like you have been simply forgotten. Amid the economic upheavals of the past 4 decades, too many people have been left behind and treated like they're invisible. Maybe that's you, watching from home. You remember the jobs that went away. You remember them, don't you? The folks at home remember them. You wondered whether the path ever would even exist anymore for your children to get ahead without having to move away. Well, that's why I get it. That's why I'm building an economy where no one is left behind. Jobs are coming back. Pride is coming back because of choices we made in the last several years. You know, this is, in my view, a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America and make a real difference in our lives at home. For example, Too many of you lay in bed at night, like my dad did, staring at the ceiling, wondering what in God's name happened to you. If your spouse get cancer, or your child gets deadly ill, or something happens to you, what are you going to do? Are you going to have the money to pay for these medical bills? Are you going to have to sell the house to try to get a second mortgage on it? I get it. With the Inflation Reduction Act that I signed into law, we are taking on powerful interest to bring healthcare costs down so you can sleep better at night with more security. You know, we pay more for prescription drugs than any nation in the world. Let me say it again. We pay more for prescription drugs than any major nation on earth. For example, 1 in 10 Americans are diabetic. Many of you in this chamber do, and in the audience. But every day, millions need insulin to control their diabetes so they can literally stay alive. Insulin has been around for over 100 years. The guy who invented it didn't even patent it because he wanted it to be available for everyone. It cost the drug companies roughly $10 a vial to make that insulin, package it and all. You get up to $13, but big pharmacies has been unfairly charging people hundreds of dollars, $400 to $500 a month, making record profits. Not everyone, not anymore. So many things that we did are only now coming to fruition. We said we were doing this, and we said we are past the law to do it. But people don't know because the law didn't take effect until January 1st of this year. We capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors or Medicare, but people are just finding out. I'm sure you're getting some calls you're going to get. Look, there are millions of Americans who are not on Medicare, including 200,000 young people with type 1 diabetes who need this insulin to stay alive. Let's finish the job this time. Let's cap the cost of insulin for everybody at $35. Folks, and big pharmacies is still going to do very well. I promise you all. I promise you we're going to do very well. This law also caps, and it won't even go into effect until 2025. Its costs, out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors on Medicare at a maximum of $2,000 a year. You don't have to pay more than $2,000 a year, no matter how much your drug costs are, because you know why. You all know it. Many of you, like many of my family, have cancer. You know the drugs can range from $10, $11, $14,000 to $15,000 for the cancer drugs. And if drug prices raise faster than inflation, drug companies are going to have to pay Medicare back the difference. And we're finally giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices. Bringing down prescription drug costs doesn't just save a senior money, it cuts the federal deficit by billions of dollars, by hundreds of billions of dollars, because these prescription drugs are drugs purchased by Medicare to keep your commitment to the seniors. Well, guess what? Instead of paying $400 or $500 a month, we're paying $15. That's a lot of saving for the federal government. And by the way, why wouldn't we want that? Now, some members here are threatening. And I know it's not an official party position, so I'm not going to exaggerate, but threatening to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. As my coach, that's okay, that's fair. As my football coach used to say, lots of luck in your senior year. Make no mistake, if you try anything to raise the cost of prescription drugs, I will veto it. And look, I'm pleased to say that more Americans have health insurance now than ever in history. A record of 16 million people are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And thanks to the law I signed last year, saving millions or saving $800 a year on these premiums. And by the way, that law was written. The benefit expired in 2025. So my plea to some of you, at least in this audience, let's finish the job and make those savings permanent. Expand coverage on Medicare. Look, Inflation Reduction Act is also the most significant investment ever in climate change. Ever. Lowering utility bills, creating American jobs, leading the world to a clean energy future. I visit the devastating aftermath of record floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires across Arizona to New Mexico and to all the way up to the Canadian border. More timber has been burned than I've observed from the helicopter than the entire state of Missouri. And we don't have global warming. Not a problem. In addition to emergency recovery from Puerto Rico to Florida to Idaho, we're rebuilding for the long term. New electric grids that are available, that are able to weather major storms and not prevent these fires, forest fires, roads and water systems to withstand the next big flood. Clean energy to cut pollution and create jobs in communities often left behind. We're going to build 500,000 electrical vehicle charging stations installed across the country by tens of thousands of IBEW workers. And we're helping families save more than $1,000 a year with tax credits to purchase of electrical vehicles and efficiency and the efficient appliances, energy efficient appliances. Historical conversation efforts to the responsible stewards of our land. Let's face reality. The climate crisis doesn't care if you're in a red or a blue state. It is existential threat. We have an obligation, not to ourselves, but to our children and grandchildren, to confront it. I'm proud of how America at last is stepping up to the challenge. We're still going to need oil and gas for a while. But guess what? No, we do. But there's so much more to do. We got to finish the job. And we pay for these investments in our future by finally making the wealthiest and the biggest corporation begin to pay their fair share. Just begin. Look, I'm a capitalist, but you pay your fair share. I think a lot of you at home agree with me and many people that you know. The tax system is not fair. It is not fair. Look, the idea that in 2020, 55 of the largest corporations in America, the Fortune 500, made $40 billion in profit and paid zero in federal taxes. The president, folks, is simply not fair. But now, because of the law I signed, billion-dollar companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. God loved them. 50%, 15%, that's less than a nurse pays. Let me be crystal clear. I said at the very beginning, under my plan, as long as I'm president, nobody's earning less than $400,000 would pay an additional penny in taxes. Nobody. No one penny. But let's finish the job. There's more to do. We have to reward reward work, not just wealth. Pass my proposal for the million minimum tax, billionaire minimum tax. You know, there's 1,000 billionaires in America, and it's up from about 600 at the beginning of my term. But no billionaire should be paying a lower tax rate than a school teacher or a firefighter. No, I mean it. Think about it. I mean, look, I know you all aren't enthusiastic about that, but think about it. Think about it. Have you noticed? Big Oil just reported its profit, record profit. Last year, that made $200 billion in the midst of a global energy crisis. I think it's outrageous. Why? They invented too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we were afraid you were going to shut down all the oil wells and all the oil refineries anyway. So why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade, and that's going to excess. And beyond that, we're going to need it. Production. If they had it, in fact, invest in the production to keep gas prices down. Instead, they use the record profit to buy back their own stock, rewarding their CEOs and shareholders. Corporations ought to do the right thing. That's why I propose my quadruple the tax on corporate stock buybacks and encourage long-term investment. They still make considerable profit. Let's finish the job and close the loophole that allows the very wealthy to avoid paying their tax. Instead of cutting the number of audits for wealthy taxpayers. I just signed a law to reduce the deficit by $114 billion by cracking down on wealthy tax credits. That's being fiscally responsible. In the last 2 years, my administration has cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion, the largest deficit reduction in American history. Under the previous administration, the American deficit went up 4 years in a row. Because of these record deficits, no president added more to the national debt in any 4 years than my predecessor. Nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one. There are the facts. Check it out. Check it out. How did Congress respond to that debt? They did the right thing. They lifted the debt ceiling 3 times without precondition or crisis. They paid the American bill to prevent an economic disaster of the country. So tonight, I'm asking the country to follow suit. Let us commit here tonight that the full faith and credit of the United States of America will never, ever be questioned. Many of some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it. Unless I agree to their economic plans, all of you at home should know that these plans are, instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. The president, let's give you the presidents, anybody who doubted, contact my office. I give you a copy. I give you a copy of the proposal. The president, this means Congress don't vote. Well, I'm glad to see. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversation. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the program the way they are, they're going away. Our Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's a significant. But it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but I'm being proposed by some of you. The president, look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the hook, off the books now. They're not to be touched. All right. Social Security and Medicare are a lifeline for millions of seniors. Americans have to pay into them from the very first paycheck they're started. So tonight, let's all agree, and we apparently are, let's stand for seniors. Stand up and show them we will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare. Those benefits belong to the American people. They earn it. And if anyone tries to cut Social Security, which apparently no one is going to do, and if anyone tries to cut Medicare, I'll stop them. I'll veto it. And look, I'm not going to allow them to be taken away. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But apparently, it's not going to be a problem. Next month, when I offer my fiscal plan, I ask my Republican friends to lay down their plan as well. I really meant it. Let's sit down together and discuss our mutual plans together. Let's do that. I can tell you the plan I'm going to show you is going to cut the deficit by another $2 trillion, and it won't cut a single bit of Medicare or Social Security. In fact, we're going to extend the Medicare trust funds at least 2 decades, because that's going to be the next argument. How do we keep it solvent? Well, I will not raise taxes on anyone making under 400 grand, but we'll pay for it the way we talked about it tonight. We'll make sure that the wealthy and the big corporation pay their fair share. Look. Here's the deal. They aren't just taking advantage of the tax codes. They're taking advantage of you, American consumer. Here's my message to all of you out there. I have your back. We're already preventing Americans who are from receiving surprise medical bills, stopping $1 billion, 1 million surplus billions per month, surpassed 3 billions per month so far. We are protecting seniors' life savings by cracking down on nursing homes that commit fraud, endanger patient safety, or prescribe drugs that are not needed. Millions of Americans can now save thousands of dollars because they can finally get a hearing aid over the counter without a prescription. Look, capitalism without compensation is not capitalism. It's extortion. It's exploitation. Last year, I cracked down with the help of many of you on foreign shipping companies that were making you pay higher prices for every good coming into the country. I signed a bipartisan bill that cut shipping costs by 90%, helping American farmers, business, and consumers. Let's finish the job. Pass the bipartisan legislation to strengthen antitrust reinforcement and forbid and prevent big online platforms from giving their own products an unfair advantage. My administration is also taking on junk fees, those hidden surcharges too many companies use to make you pay more. For example, we're making airlines show you the full ticket price up front. Refund your money if your flight is canceled or delayed. We'll reduce extortion bank overdrafts by saving consumers more than $1 billion a year. We're cutting credit cards late fees by 75% from 30 to 8. Look, junk fees may not matter to the very wealthy, but they matter to most other folks in homes like the one I grew up in, or like many of you did. They add up to hundreds of dollars a month. They make it harder for you to pay your bills or afford that family trip. I know how unfair it feels when a company overcharges you and get away with it. Not anymore. We're writing a bill to stop it all. It calls the Jump Fee Prevention Act. We're going to ban surprise resort fees that hotel charges on your bills. These fees can cost up to $90 a night at hotels that aren't even resorts. The idea that cable, internet, and cell phone companies can charge you $200 or more if you decide to switch to another provider. Give me a break. We can stop service fees on tickets to concerts and sporting events and make companies disclose all the fees up front. And we're prohibit airliners from charging $50 round trip for a family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage. Americans are we're tired of being played for suckers. So pass the Junk Fee Prevention Act so companies stop ripping us off. For too long, workers have been getting shifted, but not anymore. We're beginning to restore the dignity of work. For example, I should know this, but I don't until 2 years. I didn't until 2 years ago. 30 million workers have to sign non-compete agreements for the jobs they take. 30 million. So a cashier at a burger place can't work across town and take the same job at another burger place and make a few more bucks. The president, it's just change. Well, they just changed it because we exposed it. That's the part of the deal, guys. Look it up, but not anymore. We're banning those agreements to companies, so companies have to compete for workers and pay them their worth. And I must tell you, this is a bonus to get a response from my friends on my life with the right. I'm so sick and tired of companies breaking the law by preventing workers from organizing, passing the PRO Act, because business have a right, workers have a right to form a union, and let's guarantee all the workers have a living wage. Let's make sure working parents can afford to raise a family with sick days. paid family and medical leave, affordable child care. That's going to enable millions of more people to go and stay at work. And let's resolve the full child tax credit, which gives tens of millions of parents some breathing room and cut child poverty in half to the lowest level in history. And by the way, when we do all these things, we increase productivity, we increase economic growth. So let's finish the job and get more families access to affordable quality housing. Let's get seniors who want to stay in their homes the care they need to do so. Let's give more breathing room to millions of families, caregivers, looking after their loved ones. Pass my plan so we get seniors and people with disabilities the homes or service they need, and support the workers who are doing God's work. These plans are fully paid for, and we can't afford to do them. Restoring the dignity of work means making education an affordable ticket to the middle class. You know, when we made public education 12 years of it, universities in the last century, we made the best educator, best paid. We became the best education, best paid nation in the world. But the rest of the world has caught up. It has caught up. Jill, my wife, who teaches full-time, has an expression. I hope I get it right. Any nation that out-educate is going to out-compete us. Any nation that out-educate is going to out-compete us. Folks, we all know 12 years of education is not enough to win the economic competition of the 21st century. If we want to have the best educated workforce, let's finish the job by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. Studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter the background they come from. Let's give public school teachers a raise. We're making progress by reducing student debt, increasing Pell Grants for workers and middle-class families. Let's finish the job and connect students to career opportunities starting in high school, providing access to 2 years of community college, the best career training in America, in addition to being a pathway to a 4-year degree. Let's offer every American a path to a good career, whether they go to college or not. Folks, in the midst of the COVID crisis, when schools were closed and we were shutting down everything, let's recognize how far we came in the fight against the pandemic itself. While the virus is not gone, thanks to the resilience of the American people and the ingenuity of medicine, we've broken the COVID gap on us. COVID deaths are down by 90%. We've saved millions of lives and opened up our country. We'll open our country back up, and soon we're in the public health emergency. But we'll remember the toll and pain that never is going to go away. More than 1 million Americans lost their lives to COVID. 1 million families grieving, children orphaned, empty chairs at the dinner table, at the dining room table, constantly reminding us that some used to sit there. Remembering them, we remain vigilant. We still need to monitor dozens of variants and support new vaccines and treatments. So Congress needs to fund these efforts and keep Americans safe. As we emerge from the crisis to get stronger, we're also got to double down prosecuting criminals who stole relief money meant to keep workers and small business afloat. Before I came to office, you remember during the campaign, the big issue was about inspector generals who would protect taxpayer dollars, who would sideline. They were fired. Many people said they needed that. They didn't need them. And fraud became rampant. Last year, I told you the watchdogs are back. Since then, we have recovered billions of taxpayer dollars. Now, let's triple the anti-fraud strike force going after these criminals, double the statutes of limitation on these crimes, and crack down on identity fraud by criminals, cynics stealing billions of dollars from the American people. And the data shows that for every dollar we put into fighting fraud, the taxpayer will get back at least 10 times as much. It matters. It matters. Look, COVID left its scars, like the spike in violent crime in 2020, the first year of the pandemic. We have an obligation to make sure all people are safe. Public safety depends on public trust, as all of us know. But too often, that trust is violated. Joining us tonight are the parents of Terry Nichols, welcome, who had to bury their Terry last week. As many of you personally know, there's no word to describe the heartaches or grief of losing a child. But imagine if you lost that child at the hands of the law. Imagine having to worry your son or daughter came home from walking down the street or playing in the park or just driving a car. Most of us in here have never had to have the talk that brown and black parents have to have with their children. Brew, Hunter, Ashley, my children, I never had to have the talk with them. I never had to tell them if a police officer pulled you over, turn your interior lights on right away. Don't reach for your license. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Imagine having to worry like that every single time your kid got in the car. Here's what Tyree's mother shared with me when I spoke to her. When I asked her how she finds the courage to carry on and speak out. With the faith of God, she said, my son was, quote, a beautiful soul. Something good would happen of this. Imagine how much courage and character that takes. It is up to us, to all of us. We want the same thing, neighborhoods free of violence, law enforcement who earns the community's trust, just as every cop, when they pin on the badge in the morning, has a right to be able to come home at night, so does everyone else out there. Our children have a right to come home safely. Equal protection under the law is a covenant we have with each other in America. We know police officers put their lives on the line every single night and day. And we know we ask them, in many cases, to do too much, to be counselors, social workers, psychologists, responding to drug overdose, mental health crisis, and so much more. In one sense, we ask too much of them. I know cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority, and they risk their lives every time they put that shield on. But what happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them to succeed in keeping them safe. We also need more first responders and professionals to address the growing mental health, substance abuse challenges. More resources to reduce violent crime and gun crime. More community investors in intervention programs. More investment in housing, education, and job training. All this can help prevent violence in the first place. And when police officers or police departments violate the public trust, they must be held accountable. With the support of families of victims, civil rights groups, and law enforcement, I signed an executive order for all federal officers banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, and other key elements of the George Floyd Act. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyree Mom true. Something good must come from this. Something good. And all of us, folks, it's difficult, but it's simple. All of us in the area, in this chamber, we need to raise this moment. We can't turn away. Let's do what we know in our hearts that we need to do. Let's come together to finish the job on police reform. Do something, do something. That was the plea of parents who lost their children unvalid. I met with every one of them. Do something about gun violence. Thank God we did. Passing the most sweeping gun safety law in 3 decades. That includes things like that the majority of responsible gun owners already support enhanced background checks for 18 to 21 years old. Red flag law, keeping guns out of the hands of people who are a danger to themselves and others. But we know our work is not done. Joining us tonight at Brandy's Trab, a 26-year-old hero. Brandon put his college dreams on hold to be at his mom's side. His mom's side when she was dying from cancer. And Brandon now works at the dance studio started by his grandparents. And 2 weeks ago, during the Lunar New Year celebration, he heard the studio doors close, and he saw a man standing there pointing a semi-automatic pistol at him. He thought he was going to die, but he thought about the people inside. In that instant, he found the courage to act and wrestled the semi-automatic pistol away from the gunman who had already killed 11 people in another dance studio. 11. He saved lives. It's time we do the same. But ban assault weapons now. Ban them now, once and for all. I led the fight to do it in 1994, and in 10 years that ban was law. Mass shootings went down. After we let it expire in the Republican administration, mass shootings tripled. Let's finish the job and ban these assault weapons. And let's also come together on immigration. Make it a bipartisan issue over again. We now have a record number of personnel working to secure the border, arresting 800,000 human smugglers. 8,000 human smugglers seizing over 23 pounds of fentanyl in just the last several months. We launched a new border plan last month. Unlawful migration from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela has come down to 97% as a consequence of that. But the American borders problems won't be fixed until Congress acts. If we don't pass my comprehensive immigration reform, at least pass my plan to provide the equipment and officers to secure the border, and a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those on temporary status, frame workers, essential workers, here in the people's house. It's our duty to protect all the people's right and freedom. Congress must resort the right and secure the borders. The President, Congress must resort the right that was taken away in Roe v. Wade and protect Roe v. Wade. Give every woman the constitutional right. The Vice President and I are doing everything to protect access to reproduction health care and safeguard patient safety. But already, more than a dozen states are enforcing extreme abortion bans. Make no mistake about it. If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it. But let's also pass a bipartisan Equality Act to ensure LBG and LGBTQ Americans, especially transgender young people, can live with safety and dignity. Our strength is not just the example of our power, but the power of our example. Let's remember, the world is watching. I spoke from this chamber 1 year ago, just days after Vladimir Putin unleashed his brutal attack against Ukraine, a murderous assault invoking images of death and destruction Europe suffered in World War II. Putin's invasion has been a test for the ages, a test for America, a test for the world. Would we stand for the most basic of principles? Would we stand for sovereignty? Will we stand for the right of people to live free of tyranny? Will we stand for the defense of democracy? For such defense matters to us because it keeps peace and prevents one season on would-be aggressive that threaten our prosperity. 1 year later, we know the answer. Yes, we would, and we did. We did. And together, we did what America always does at our best. We led. We united NATO. We built a global coalition. We stood against Putin's aggression. We stood with the Ukrainian people. Tonight, we are once again joined by Ukrainian ambassador to the United States. She represents not her, but her nation, but the courage of people. Our ambassador is here, united we're united in our support of your country. We will stand so we can all take a look at you. Thank you, because we're going to stand with you as long as it takes. Our nation is working for more freedom, more dignity, and more peace, not just in Europe, but everywhere. Before I came to office, the story was about how the People's Republic of China was increasing its power and America was failing in the world. Not anymore. We made clear, and I made clear in my personal conversation, which have been many, with President Exxon, that we seek competition, not conflict. But I will make no apologies that we are investing and to make America stronger, investing in American innovation and industry that will define the future, and China in interest intends to be dominated. Investing in our alliances, and working with our allies to prevent advanced technology so we will not be used against us. Modernizing our military to safeguard stability and detect aggression. Today, we're in the strongest position in decades to compete with China or anyone else in the world. Anyone else in the world. And I'm committed. I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world. But make no mistakes about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did. Look, let's be clear. Winning the competition should unite all of us. We face serious challenges across the world, but in the past 2 years, democracy have become stronger, not weaker. Autocrats have grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with this on. The Chinese leader. Name me one. Name me one. America is railing the world to meet these challenges, from climate to global health to food insecurities to terrorism and to territorial aggression. Allies are stepping up, spending more and doing more. Look, the bridges are forming between partners in the Pacific and those in Atlantic. And those who bet against America, are learning how wrong they are. It's never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. Never. We made real progress together. We passed a law making it easier for doctors to prescribe effective treatment for opiate